So today I'm going to be talking about color correction and color grading using Lumetri Color in Premiere Pro. First, I want to differentiate between color correction and color grading. Color correction is balancing the image, achieving proper exposure and representation of colors, while color grading is working with color creatively. So to demonstrate this, I've imported a few clips into Premiere Pro and dragged them into my timeline. And so then to edit any clip, you're just going to want to select it so that it's surrounded by a white border. And for color, we're going to go up to here and click color. And this will open Lumetri color panels. And as you can see here, there are a bunch of different things we can work with. Here for just basic color correction, we're going to be working with the basic correction panel. So obviously we can see this image, the white balance is very pink and orange. So if we go over here to white balance selector, one thing we can do is select an area that is supposed to be white and click on it. So I do that, but I still feel like this image is a little bit green, little too blue. So we don't want to pull it all the way there, but definitely better than before. Yeah. And so the other things you can do on here would be obviously messing with exposure, contrast, highlights, shadows, all that kind of stuff in case you have anything that's blown out highlight wise. But I'm not going to really do any of that stuff to this clip. And then I have another clip where we kind of have a similar issue going on. So here again, we'll go to white balance selector, select the white balance. And so these two clips are from the same scene. So it's going to be important that we feel like the colors match. And so the way that we can look at that is we're going to go to color wheels and match. And then under color match, we're going to go to comparison view. So here, this allows us to see both the clip we're editing, this one, and our reference clip. So we want to make sure that this is a nice way to be able to tell if you feel like the colors are represented similarly in each clip. We have these three color wheels for midtones, shadows, and highlights. And just as an example, we can mess around with the highlights and basically by just grabbing this center sign, and we can make them, as I pull them in this direction, where they're going to get pink, they're a little reddish. We can also pull them in this direction and they're super green. But I don't think we really want to do that for this image that I've selected. So then to just reset it back to its original, you just double click and it'll pop back. And the same can be done for shadows, highlights, midtones, all of those work in the same way, where they're going to target specific areas of the image based on how exposed they are. And then for color grading, we will be mostly working with the curves section within the Lumetri color panel. So on the curve section, we're going to have two types of curves. We're going to have RGB curves and we're going to have hue saturation curves. So firstly, I'm going to talk a little bit about RGB curves. So with this image we have here, I'm going to play around a little bit with the RGB curve. And so using this curve, we can adjust shadows, midtones, highlights. So for example, we can adjust shadows by placing a control point on the bottom left-hand corner. So this will basically adjust shadows as we pull them up. They get lighter. As we pull this way, they're going to get darker. So we will leave this maybe somewhere over here for the moment. And then in the middle of the curve, that's going to adjust our midtones. So we can pull the midtones down, or we can pull the midtones up really bright. So for right now, let's just pull the midtones down slightly. And then up at the top here, that's where we're going to control our highlights. So for that, we can pull them this way a little bit. We can pull them down. Just going to desaturate them. So once we've gotten that done with this curve, you can see the image as it stands right now. We have a little bit more color in the sky by pulling the highlight over to the left. Midtones are pulled down so they're a little bit blacker. So we can go ahead and pull the midtones back up a bit, I think. And then the other three color controls here on the RGB curve are going to control the amount of that color that is represented within the highlights, shadows, midtones. So for example, like maybe we want our highlights to be super red. We could pull that, or we could pull it down so that there's no red, and that's going to make it pretty blue. Same thing where it'll adjust midtones. So I just pulled it down, so they're going to be really blue. Pull it up, super red. We can adjust the shadows. So there's definitely a lot of like really crazy things you can do with these controls, and then it's going to be the same thing for the red and the green and the blue controls. And then to talk about hue and saturation curves, I'm going to move over to this clip, which is just some bokeh. Go here. And so hue saturation is going to allow you to select a given hue and then adjust its saturation. So for example, we can use the eyedropper tool, and let's say we have this like green hue. It'll pull up 3 dots right on the hue saturation curve that will allow you to adjust this hue specifically. What I typically do is go to the middle one and adjust that one first. So if we pull it up, it's going to become more saturated. And then if we pull it down, it's going to become less saturated. I think the green is kind of distracting in this image, so I'm going to leave it pulled down. And then we can also look at the hue versus hue curve, and that's going to adjust a selected hue against another hue. So basically it can change the hue. So we can go to the eyedropper tool, and let's say we wanted to adjust this like orange hue. So that will again produce the 3 dots, and we can go to the middle one and it'll give you this color. So as you drag down, you'll see it'll change color given or depending on where you are. So you could, make it green. You could pull it up and it could be blue or purple. So there's a lot of things you can do with this hue versus hue curve.